There's a truth you don't want to believe. A truth you've probably dismissed 100 times because it feels beneath you, beneath your intelligence, beneath the sophistication you think you're supposed to have to succeed. The truth is this: your results don't fail because your strategy is too simple. Your results fail because you are too complicated. You think complexity will save you. You think more indicators, more filters, more confirmation signals, more data, more nuance, more intellectual acrobatics will protect you from uncertainty. But complexity doesn't protect you. Complexity sedates you. It soothes your ego, not your outcomes. Because the problem has never been your lack of knowledge. It has always been, and will always be, behavior. And behavior, unlike logic, doesn't care how many hours you spent researching your system. Behavior doesn't care how advanced your analysis is. Behavior doesn't care how many books you've read or how clever your ideas sound in a trading forum. Behavior listens to something older, more primal, more powerful: the nervous system that evolved for survival, not performance. This is where traders sabotage themselves. This is where you sabotage yourself, not in the way you analyze, but in the way you respond. And that's why simple systems outperform complicated ones, because a simple system demands less from your nervous system. It gives your biology fewer opportunities to hijack your execution. But let's slow down. Let's dismantle this from the inside out. You love complex systems. You love them because they feel intelligent, and intelligence is comforting, isn't it? It gives you the illusion of control. When you build a huge trading model, stacking indicators and signals, you feel like you're constructing armor. Armor against randomness, against volatility, against your own fear. You convince yourself, if the system is sophisticated enough, it won't fail. But that's a fantasy, a beautifully constructed, emotionally soothing fantasy. Because the more complex your system, the more fragile it becomes. Every additional rule is another point of emotional failure. Every added indicator is another opportunity for analysis paralysis. Every extra layer of logic is another moment where emotion can slip through the cracks. You think complexity makes you objective, but complexity actually gives your brain more excuses. More room to interpret. More room to hesitate. More room to distort. More room to deviate. More room to break discipline. Complexity is the refuge of a mind afraid to face itself. And you know this. You've experienced it. That moment where your strategy says enter, but your emotions say wait. That moment where your rules say exit, but your fear says hold. That moment where your plan says stop trading, but your desperation says one more. You break the rules not because the rules are flawed, but because you are unreliable under pressure. That's the part you don't want to admit. Let me tell you about Adrian. Not a real person, but real enough. Real because you've met him. Real because you are him, at least in your worst moments. Adrian built what he believed was a brilliant trading system. 7 indicators. Multiple filters. Time of day adjustments. Risk parameters tied to volatility regimes. A decision flow chart that looked like a map of a small city. He tested it for months. Optimized it. Re-optimized it. Tweaked it until the equity curve looked like a staircase to heaven. He was proud, the kind of pride that feels more like armor than confidence. Then came real market conditions. Day 1. The system gives him a signal. But Adrian hesitates. What if the market's too strong today? He skips it. The trade works without him. He feels the sting. Day 2. Another signal. He takes it this time, but exits early when the price pulls back slightly. The trade eventually reaches full target. He watches helplessly. Day 3. A small losing streak begins. The system says, keep going. Fear says, pause until it looks clearer. The pause costs him 2 valid winners. Day 4. Frustration. Resentment. Decision fatigue settling into his bones. Adrian gives up on the rules. He starts improvising. Overtrading. Chasing. Avoiding. Second-guessing. By day 10, the system never failed. Adrian failed every part of it. He didn't lose to the market. He didn't lose to randomness. He didn't lose to a lack of knowledge. He lost because his biology overwhelmed his logic. He lost because the system was too complex for his emotions to follow. He lost because the system demanded superhuman discipline and he was only human. Which is exactly why simple systems win. Not because they predict better. Not because they analyze better. not because they're more mathematically pure. No simple systems win because you can actually follow them. This is the painful part. You want your performance to be a function of your intelligence, your knowledge, your analytical talent. It feels good to believe that, but it's delusional because the market doesn't reward thought. The market rewards behavior. You can analyze with perfect logic and still execute with total dysfunction. You can design a crystal clear plan and still behave like a panicked amateur. You can know exactly what to do and still choose the opposite when stress compresses your perception. In trading, performance is not about how much you know, how advanced your model is, how beautifully your strategy is structured, how long your backtest report is. In trading, performance is about what you actually do under uncertainty, how you behave when your heart rate spikes, how you respond to losses, how consistent you are when temptation knocks, how you manage fear, boredom, greed, and frustration, how you follow rules when emotions surge. Every time you place an order, you're not competing against other traders. You're competing against your own impulses. And your impulses are faster, older, and stronger than any piece of logic you've ever written. That's why simple strategies win, because they reduce the surface area where emotions can sabotage you. They minimize points of mental friction. They lower cognitive load. They neutralize decision fatigue. They close the gaps where fear slips in. They remove the ambiguity where doubt grows roots. You don't need more complexity. You need fewer opportunity points for self-destruction. Let's talk neuroscience. Not the flattering kind, the humiliating kind. Your brain evolved for survival in a world of predators, not for thriving in a world of probabilities. You are, biologically speaking, a creature built for avoiding losses at all costs, responding instantly to fear, seeking immediate gratification, judging the present more heavily than the future, extrapolating patterns from noise, panicking at randomness, chasing the feeling of certainty, reacting emotionally to short-term fluctuations. These aren't flaws. They're design features. But in trading, they're lethal. Loss aversion means your brain registers losses as twice as painful as gains. Even a perfectly normal losing trade feels like danger. Dopamine means your brain craves novelty, exactly why simple systems feel boring and boredom feels unbearable. Recency bias means you assume the most recent events matter most, so a losing streak shakes your identity and a winning streak inflates your ego. Decision fatigue means as the day unfolds, your ability to make rational choices drops, so every extra rule becomes a burden your biology can't carry. Your biology is the enemy of consistency, and complexity fuels biology, but simplicity neutralizes it. A simple system removes dopamine triggers, removes ambiguity, reduces recency bias, cuts down decision fatigue, limits overreaction, creates emotional predictability. Simplicity isn't a trading edge. Simplicity is an emotional defense mechanism. You're addicted to the idea that you should be able to control your results. This is the core of your suffering. You want the market to reflect your intelligence. You want your equity curve to validate your hard work. You want your strategies to reward your analysis. You want certainty where none exists. So you build complexity. You build logic. You build intricate systems that map chaos into something that looks orderly. But the moment you truly trade, real uncertainty presses against your nerves and the fantasy cracks. You don't control results. You control actions. And the gap between knowing and doing is the gap that destroys traders. A simple strategy respects that limitation. A simple strategy acknowledges your humanity. A simple strategy aligns with your biological constraints. A complex strategy ignores them, assuming you can behave like a machine under emotional pressure. Complexity isn't intelligence. Complexity is arrogance. It's the arrogance of thinking you can outsmart your own nervous system. A simple system has fewer decision points, demands fewer cognitive resources, requires less emotional stability, provides clearer signals, generates more consistency, is easier to automate or semi-automate, is more robust across market conditions, has fewer failure modes. Most importantly, a simple system still works when your emotions don't. A complex system collapses exactly when emotions are strongest. Think about drawdowns, losing streaks, regime shifts, volatility spikes. When stress surges, complexity becomes unbearable. Your brain can't hold the rules. Your self-trust collapses. You interpret signals emotionally. You selectively follow rules based on fear or hope. You alter the system to soothe discomfort. You drift further from consistency. Then you blame the system. But it wasn't the system. It was you. It has always been you. You're not avoiding simplicity because simple doesn't work. You're avoiding simplicity because of what it reveals about you. A simple system exposes your behavior directly. No excuses. No conflicting indicators. No intellectual gymnastics to mask fear. A simple system makes your failure personal. If you break a simple rule, you can't hide. You lack discipline. You lacked emotional control. You lacked consistency. You broke the plan. You broke the rule. You broke yourself. And that is a hard truth to look at. So you bury yourself in complexity because complexity spreads blame. Complexity dilutes responsibility. Complexity makes failure feel less personal. But deep down you know the truth. You know what to do, you just don't do it. The market is not your opponent. Other traders are not your opponent. Volatility is not your opponent. Your opponent is internal. Your opponent is the part of you that wants certainty before action, comfort over results, immediacy over long-term consistency, dopamine over discipline, reassurance over execution. This internal opponent thrives in complexity. But simplicity corners it. Simplicity exposes it. Simplicity forces you to confront yourself. There's a hidden cost to complexity that no one mentions. Complexity destroys longevity. It drains willpower, amplifies stress, accelerates burnout, magnifies emotional swings, intensifies self-doubt, and erodes your capacity to operate calmly. Trading is a long-term game. Complexity is a long-term death sentence. Simplicity is not sexy, but simplicity is sustainable. And sustainability, not brilliance, is the real foundation of mastery. The problem is not knowledge. The problem is behavior. You don't need more information. You don't need more indicators. You don't need more complexity. You need fewer decisions, fewer temptations, fewer variables, fewer emotional triggers. You need structure, ritual, clarity. You need rules that survive stress. You need a strategy that remains executable when you don't feel like executing. Consistency is not born from intelligence. Consistency is born from reducing the number of times you need to be strong. A simple system reduces those moments. Mastery isn't about knowing more. Mastery is about needing less. Less complexity, less noise, less emotional interference. Mastery is the elimination of unnecessary decisions. Mastery is the reduction of internal friction. Mastery is the taming of your nervous system. Mastery is the alignment of behavior with intention. When your strategy becomes simple enough, you see the truth. Execution is the real battlefield. Discipline is the real edge. Consistency is the real superpower. Anyone can learn a complex system. Few can execute a simple one consistently. So here you are, still searching, still overcomplicating, still believing that more information will fix what is fundamentally behavioral. But deep down, you know the truth. You've always known it. The real work has never been about building a smarter system. The real work has never been about optimization. The real work has never been about predicting better. The real work, the uncomfortable, inevitable work, is learning how to do what you already know you're supposed to do. And that is why simple strategies crush complex ones. Because simple strategies create a world where your behavior has a chance to be consistent. And consistency is what builds mastery. And mastery is what builds results. In the end, the market doesn't care how much you know. The market cares how well you behave. And if you're honest, painfully honest, you know that's the truth you needed to face all along.